Welcome back, Coach Crew. Today we're going to go through another Veiled Experts video, and this time we're going to walk through the changes, the update that is coming, and we're also going to talk about the potential release date. Some of these changes, some of these updates look fantastic, so this is going to be a great video to delve into. If you do enjoy the video, please drop a like. If you have any questions throughout, throw them down below. If you haven't already, please do subscribe, because it helps me out a ton. Let's go. So the initial big takeaway from their video was that they thought that it's currently too harsh on the newer players. So some of the changes they're making are to then try and make it a much better experience for newer people jumping in, which I obviously don't think is a terrible idea. I think it's a fantastic idea because then it's going to get more people playing the game. And I can see why, because when new people do jump in, and when I was streaming this, when I was talking to people about the game, one of the takeaways was that there is a lot going on. So I think making changes to try and make it easier for people to jump in, enjoy, is fantastic. So some of those changes that they're making to try and make that a better experience include making improvements to the tutorial and to the training area. So I didn't necessarily think the tutorial as it stands was too bad, but making improvements to it to obviously make that experience of knowing how to play the game better is never a bad thing. And then they're making improvements to the training area so people can obviously jump in, play around without it actually being within an in-game and feeling that pressure and whatnot. What they're also bringing in is an AI bot system. Now, I'm not entirely sure what that means as a whole, but I am pretty confident that it does mean that that is going to be within Training Ground at least. So they're going to have AI bots within the Training Ground mode, so you can then practice a little bit better, playing against something, so you can get more of an experience of how to play the game. Now, whether they might then also have AI bots, maybe some games when you play the first 5 games that you play within a game, there's AI bots that you play against or whatnot. Who knows? That's just speculation. But what I'm confident with is that it's going to be in the training area, which again is just great for new players and if you want to experiment, test things out. Next, which are 2 big changes, is that they're bringing out 2 new game modes. Now, I think this is good, one, for new players, but also just for the game as a whole, to give it more variety and for more things for us to do, right? Because obviously, yes, it was in beta, but in the current state, there's only 1 game mode, right? I'm a huge fan of demolition type game modes, so I wasn't too fussed, but to have more variety, more options is fantastic. Those two game modes are going to be TDM, so Team Deathmatch, and then there's also going to be a game mode for solo players. They haven't expanded on what that game mode is, whether it's like campaign style games or whatever, but there's going to be a game for solo players, which is pretty cool, and TDM. And again, going back to the new players, I think that's fantastic because TDM especially is a great mode to just play around with, to just learn, in comparison to a game like Demo where you have an objective. It's a little bit more competitive. As a new player, you might feel a little bit overwhelmed. So I think it's great for variety, more content. It's also great for that newer player. And again, the solo player mode, fantastic. If people just want to relax, chill, play the game by themselves, great option. While we're talking about game modes, moving away from the casual aspect, they are bringing ranked, which is fantastic. Especially when rank comes out alongside the other changes that we're going to continue to talk about with a more balanced game. I think having a rank mode in any game is great because then you have that competitive side if people want to delve into that. And it also helps with, let's maybe not get too carried away, but hopefully if there's ever like an esports scene or anything like that, it helps build that as well. While we touch on esports and ranked, there's also a tournament broadcasting series, which in all honesty, I don't really know what that means, what that entails, and what that actually is going to look like in game. But hey, they're talking about tournaments, they're bringing in ranked, so the competitive side of the game looks like it's also getting focus, which is great. Now, before we get on to like the balance changes and the little reworks of things that maybe people didn't like so much, more content is also coming. They're bringing out 2 new characters, no names, no details. We just know there's 2 new characters coming out, which is great. And they're also bringing out 3 new maps. Again, not much detail, around what those maps are. We only know one of them is called City, so you can kind of guess the environment. But 2 new characters, 3 new maps, straight off the bat. Fantastic. Okay, so let's talk about balance changes quickly. Things that they've taken from people's feedback. What needs to change? First and foremost, they're reworking in-game market and funding system. So basically the currency system, I'm guessing, the layout, just the HUD, what it looks like, potentially how you buy things, how you sell things. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing because if anything, it maybe was a little too complicated, especially again, if you're new, delving in for the first time, maybe struggle to get your head around a little bit. So if they can maybe make that a little bit more of a simpler process, then hey, great idea. They're reworking current Leptons and current signature abilities, okay? So again, with beta, with people probably came to some combinations of abilities and Leptons that were just pretty cracked, okay? Maybe a little too overpowered. So they're reworking on some of those Leptons, some of those abilities, obviously just to help balance the game out, which is fantastic. And, which I think is a huge one, is they're improving the shooting mechanics. Now, I don't think the shooting mechanics was necessarily bad, but I do think, and I had a lot of feedback again from when I was playing, people who I was talking to, saying that the recoil was a little too difficult to almost control and people to get their head around. So I'm assuming recoil is going to be one of the things that they're going to be focused on improving, but just improving the shooting mechanic as a whole, I think is fantastic. Alongside these little balance changes, they're also bringing in new weapons, they're also bringing in new Leptons, and new strategic items. So there's a lot of new content coming alongside those new characters and those new maps as well. They have said that other issues raised within obviously the community and people's feedback are also getting solved, so there's going to be more balance changes and whatnot. One of the balance changes I hope we see, no detail on it, nothing referenced, so we don't know, but I hope one of the balances we do see is Juggernaut getting changed in some way or another, because I felt like Juggernaut was just a little bit too strong and almost ruined what could be a fantastic game, because people would get Juggernaut and it would just be game over. And then lastly, before we get onto the release date, one of the biggest changes, which I'm a fan of, is that controller support is on its way. If you're like me and you've always been a controller player and you're terrible on mouse and keyboard, this will be a big, big dub. Now, before mouse and keyboard players start shouting aim assist and we hear all that, why do I think this is a big dub? One, because it includes more players, okay? If people can play on controller, people can play on mouse and keyboard, you're combining two massive player bases, which is going to help the game. Secondly, and there's no confirmation on this, so don't hold me to it, but if they're bringing out controller support, that to me would say that they're maybe in the back of their minds thinking console. Okay, so they're maybe also thinking, can we bring this to consoles? Because currently it's only PC. And if they bring it to consoles, then again, huge influx of new players, which is only going to help the game. So I think that in itself, bringing controller support is a massive, massive win. And then lastly, the release date. Now, unfortunately, we have no release date. Okay, they have said that they're not going to bring out another access while making these developments, which a lot of people are asking for. And in all honesty, seeing other games that have tried to do that, I think it's a good move, because there's nothing worse than playing a game while it's being in development, and if it's not done correctly, it's just frustrating. So I think letting them do their thing, letting them develop the game, and then bringing out potentially another beta or the complete game itself is a fantastic idea. The dates people heard or saw was the end of August. That's obviously now not going to be the case with this development in place. So speculation, who knows, maybe an extra month, might be looking at end of September, might even be looking a little bit further, maybe towards the end of the year, who knows. Hopefully we can be thinking September, October time, but only time will tell. The thing we do know is though, that from these changes, from the update that's going to come, the game is going to be in a much better position, so it's worth the wait. Hopefully it's just going to help the game as a whole take off. So there you have it. Let me know what your thoughts are on these changes in the comments below. Let me know what you're excited for. Let me know what you hope they change. And if you did enjoy the video, please drop a like. Found it helpful too. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe because it helps me out a ton. Catch you on the next one.